old-fashioned. It makes no sense to me because it seems to me still to be a very new-fashioned play. When I think of old-fashioned, I think of early Ibsen, a well-made play. It's not that at all. I know it's hard for you to speak for the critical community since you didn't actually say that. But why do you think they're saying that? And secondly, I know at one point you preferred living in New York to London. I don't know if you still do live in New York, but why did you prefer New York to London?
I found it very beautiful. It has an immense beauty for me. It did many, many years ago, and I was lodged in that beauty. It's a visual thing. It started. And I found, and still find it, very electrifying to me. I was galvanized by it in a very satisfying way. Sometimes alarming way, but mainly just satisfying. And London was not at that time in any way that, it didn't supply me with that kind of astonishment. And it still does. That's why I live here so much of the time. I can't think of a better answer than that. That's it. What was your other question?
About critics calling Equus old-fashioned, which I just don't see at all.
It's very strange. I haven't read the reviews at all, because it's the only way one can keep saying. But I understand that some of the critics say that it's old-fashioned in terms of its handling of psychiatry. Today we wouldn't, none of this would be happening like that. And I find that a different, perfectly lunatic way of looking at theatre. I mean, this was written 35 years ago. And the psychiatrists in those days, and I think a lot today are still, but at that time, were faced with the baffling phenomenon, baffling I think to everybody, of what's called, or was called, imprinting. What you're dealing with in that Equus is, or what Dysart is attempting to deal with, is the question of, if you like, why Equus imprints the boy with his longings and desires and his, in a way, his slavery to it. Why gentlemen prefer blondes. Why things happen in that extraordinary way. The second act of Equus, Dysart describes very carefully and exactly the principle of imprinting and the fact that no one knows why it occurs, by a succession of images. He says that a child is born into a world of phenomena, all equal in their power to enthrall it, enslave it, if you like. And a lot of work has been done since that time on the phenomenon of imprinting. But I have never been convinced that people have actually found the answer to it.
Were you a friend of R.D. Laing's? R.D. Laing was...
No, I never met him, and I never...
R.D. Laing was a psychiatrist, a very influential psychiatrist in the 60s, and wrote a book called The Divided Self, about that people have always said that Equus is indebted to the teaching.
Yes, that's right.
Is his name Dysart, D-Y-S-A-R-T, dysfunctional art? I mean,
Yeah,
not
not at
functional.
all. It's based on an 18th century nobleman, Sir John Dysart, who lived in Ham House in London. I like the name. It's got nothing to do with it.
Did R.D. Laing ever respond to the play?
No, I don't think so. He's been in credit with it, but there were a lot of people, not only him, at
Yes.
that time saying that. It was, I think, some of it was foolish. No.
He was a strategist who said he would cure people by driving them madder. He was said that true sanity is insanity. And there was a young man I knew in London, who went to him for treatment, and was rejected by Lang because he got better. And Lang rejected him and he killed himself. It was a very,
No, I don't.
I think that your play has suffered by the decline in the reputation of R.D. Laing.
Yes, I think it may have done, but I never knew it at that time. I didn't know anything to do with it. I don't think Dysart does. I think Dysart's objections, his mystery, I mean, what is mystifying to him is still mystifying. And I don't think it's aged one bit. That speech I was just talking about in Equus is still valid today.
Yes, sir.
This is Peter. I have two questions also, if I may. The first one is having to do with Royal Hunt of the Sun, which I read a few years ago, never having had an opportunity to see it. And I think if there was one play in all the world that I had read and not seen a production of, and wished I could, it would be that. I think it's just, and particularly because I only read it a few years ago for the first time, it seemed to me incredibly germane as far as telling a story of two civilizations who, because of their religious conditioning, are incapable of understanding each other. And they collide halfway across the globe. If that play would not be incredibly relevant right now, I can't think of one that would. And I wondered if any of the London critics pointed that out at the revival. If people saw how much that play speaks about the problem that's going on in the world today.
I think in London, Michael Billington did, yes, but he's very, very bright, of course.
Did you ever make the trip to Peru? Did you ever make that trip?
No, I never have. I never have.
Are there any noises about a possible American revival?
I don't think so, no. I wish it
Too
were.
many actors. How big a cast is it?
Oh, it's enormous, enormous. We did it at the night with 36 people. You see, last year.
So if you cut it down to 4 people on the TV.
Disney do it. I just, for the Road of the Sun, Equus, Amadeus, and Lettuce and Lovage, I've been fascinated that they all 4 of those, maybe there are others, seem to be about one individual who is in some way touching the divine, who is in some way in contact with the divine, and this the opponent, or adversary rather, who is utterly tied to the reality of the world, the non-spiritual. And that in some way they're always drawn together, but end up, or in Let's Lovers the other way around, they start fighting and end up as friends. But was this a conscious thing on your part, that this particular aspect of relationships interested you?
Well, I hope I was conscious of the time.
I mean, it's intriguing that it happens in such different ways in those 4 shows.
But what's your question?
Oh, I was just intrigued that you used that sort of relationship 4 times. Why is that particularly important to you?
Well, it seems to me, in one way or another, the only thing that interests me is that what we mean by the divine, how it influences one. I mean, I'm not a religious person in the sense that I believe that there is a being watching me all the time. Some figure, some humanoid. I don't understand any of that. But I do find that within oneself there is a sense of the divine, yes. Certainly I do. Otherwise life would be absolutely without meaning. And it would just be a reiterate and rather disappointing experience.
Even if it does kill. that touch, that search for the divine, because even a gift of the Gorgon, I mean, he goes over the cliff.
Yeah.
It's the price for that, and the boy is